Hi, my name is Kevin McDonald, and I'm declaring my independence. Independence from what? Why, negative thoughts and energy, of course. Chief among them, hate, division, and fear. You see, I know that we're all one, and together we can solve any problem, save our planet and each other. Please, join me as we come together as one and choose a better way to be. So now, let's begin with my independence report. Welcome, everybody, to my Independence Report. You are very lucky to be here today because we've got a wonderful guest for the entire hour, and I know that you're going to just love her as much as I do. We just met. This is the second time that we've talked. She's just delightful. We had a one. Oh yes, indeed. We had a wonderful time last time, and we're going to talk to Vanessa for the entire hour. She is an author. She's written a book that we're going to talk about a great deal because it's really cool. And I think it's going to have a lot of meaning for a lot of people. Her name is Vanessa Ferlaino.
Ferlaino, you got it. Sounds perfect.
Damn, that's a rarity for me, honestly. I generally screw it up more than I make it work. So, but Vanessa is with us for the entire time that we're here, about 45 minutes or so. So hang with us. She's written the book, and the book is called Human. Just one word, just human, but more so, what does it mean to be human? And we're going to talk about that because I'm not exactly sure I know what it means to be human. So please enlighten me, would you please?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I guess for myself, when we talk about what it means to be human, I think it's just about being who we need to be for ourselves. That's been my kind of self-discovery. I was inspired to write Human when I was going through a lot of things. And when I got to a point in my life where I could hear myself and hear my true voice, not, the voice of everybody else and what they think you need to be and how you're supposed to be, how society tries to define you. I kind of went through this big cleansing phase where I heard my voice. And then that's when I started to write. So that is what being human is to me, is about hearing your own voice and then being that person that you have to be for yourself.
You mean that voice in the back of your head that sounds like your mother? You don't want to have we don't want to have that one?
Sparingly, I think, sparingly.
we talk a lot about that because what we end up doing, I call it, we're telling stories, and we tell ourselves stories that are not only, generally speaking, if they're negative, they're not true. Mm-hmm. And when we start thinking we're too old, we're too fat, we're too young, we're too whatever it is, or that we've been told in our lifetime that we're too stupid, or we're not very smart, whatever it is, we tend to believe those stories. But you know what? When you do something really well, you tend to discount that as well. Why do we do that?
Fear.
Oh, there's that word again.
Yes, it's always fear. I think I had someone once tell me when I was going through my own processing, someone told me there are two emotions in the world. There's love and there's fear. And anything that's not love is fear. And I think that's what it is. It's usually fear of something, fear of being what we want to be for ourselves, because we're told we're not supposed to be, right? We're consistently fed these messages of you're supposed to look like this, be like this, act like this, talk like this. And so anything that deviates is wrong, right? But yes, I think it's fear.
It's interesting that you say that because recently I've been watching some near-death experience people tell their stories. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that is a common theme that they all seem to talk about is that they are told on the other side that there are only two things. There's love and there's fear. If you operate from fear, you operate from a lower level, a lower vibrational level. If you operate from love, you operate from a higher level, and you can accomplish much more from operating from a place of love than you can from a place of fear, because fear stops you cold. You're nodding, so I assume you kind of agree with that. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and I think too, love is so there's so much that makes up love, and I think one of my favorite words is compassion, right? I think that's a huge part, and I find even in the workplace, it's so difficult to stay in that state, right? It's so easy to fall into this lower energy state, but I think, yeah, like absolutely, things like compassion, gratitude is huge, right? And when you can really embody those things, you're always operating at a higher level, higher energy level, just to clarify.
Exactly. Now, it's one of the reasons why I talk about we're declaring our independence from hate, division, and fear, because those are all fear-based
Mhm.
things, and we as a people, as an individual, we need to rise above that to number one, so that we can enjoy each other and enjoy our lifestyle, our lifetime here, but also we can accomplish more. We can accomplish what we choose to do in our life rather than what happens to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not even that we can, like you said, yes, like choice, the choice of to live the life that we want to live. But it's also that idea of, this is what I write a lot about in Human is it's not even that it's our choice, but also how we can give that back to the world around us and how we can create a better community and a better world in so many different ways, socially. But I think that's the other piece to this is yes, it's our choice to live our lives, and now how can we at a higher energy level, we're consistently giving that back. So we want other people to live that same life as well.
Where did you gain the wisdom that you have?
I have, I've definitely been through my fair share of tough experiences. I think there's a few things. Growing up, I'm half Mexican and half Italian, so that's where my Ferlaino last name comes from. But my family, we grew up, that very like immigrant mindset was work, 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 and that's what we were taught. And myself, I have two siblings, and we really grew up in that with that mindset. And so a lot of the things that we were taught didn't always align with what was considered, I think, socially acceptable in certain circles, right? There's usually, the ruling class is going to kind of tell you this is how you're supposed to live your life. And we were defined by that based off of our, our background, our ethnicity. So I think, I think that's one thing, that's a layer of it that just kind of was always in the background of everything that we did. But then I did have some personal things, lost my father when I was around 21 to brain cancer. I was involved, in a very unhealthy relationship around the same time. And, all those experiences, when they all happen together, it kind of forces you to stop and say, okay, I need to really reevaluate a lot of things about my life, because I was getting to a point where I realized, all these things that are happening, I don't want these things for me. So how do I keep ending up in these types of situations? Especially when we look at the unhealthy relationships, that was something that was a consistent pattern. And so I was like, this is the person that I strive to be. So why do I still find myself here? And that just really, really started this huge self-exploration journey for me.
And it is continuing.
Absolutely. I think our whole lives are of self-exploration. There's a lot of times there's always this idea that's being promoted that there's a start and an end point all the time, and it's like, no, it just is, right? When we look at what mindfulness is, and you never just stop being mindful. You just keep, it's a way of living. It's a way of life. It's a way of being, right? And that's your whole life it's a consistent choice every day. Every choice you make, I am making this choice to live this life every single moment, and that's mindfulness. So it never ends. You just keep being mindful.
It's interesting. Your family, and when you were growing up, having an Italian side and an Hispanic side, they must have had some really interesting arguments.
Very, very, very loud. Yes. They never argued though, but there was never arguments. It was passion. Okay. Never arguments. It was just passion.
They were passionate about their discussions at a very high level.
And high level, lots of hand gestures, but it was never anger. It was always passion.
Oh, and that's, It is so cool. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was that we are all, and in your book, Human, I think you talk about it, is that we're all judged by how we look and where we come from, and we are people have a tendency of dumping us into certain buckets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And you being a female, being Hispanic and Italian, and which are and stuff that has had to be hard for you, growing up with all of the uh, all of the hate, division, and fear that's out there. I guess is the best way to put it. Was it hard for you growing up?
Yes, I felt very silenced growing up. I felt, and that's why when I mentioned at the beginning about, I was inspired to write Human when I heard my own voice, that was a lot of it. Growing up, I did feel very silenced. I felt that, not that people didn't want me to speak, but there's that layer of, this is how society works. This is where you fit. You have to say these things, right? Like this is the only way for you to belong here is if you behave and act and say these things. So yeah, definitely felt very, very silenced. And when you're silenced, sometimes you can't even hear your own voice for yourself.
It makes it very difficult.
Mhm.
Because and also if you don't break out of the listening to the stories that you're being told, and even if they're not stories that somebody tells you, like overtly says something, it's how they perceive you
Mhm.
and
Uh-huh.
how you feel you're being perceived that can end up being a story all unto itself.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of interesting. When I was writing Human, I sort of dabble into that, but in a way that's not so. Uh, it's like discreet. I get into that by highlighting my observations. In the book, that it's going through these certain experiences and interactions with people, but using these interactions to dive into how I felt or what the observations were and what the intentions were, and really evaluating and digging deep into that. So yeah, but yes, absolutely, 100%, absolutely.
You should have you thought about becoming like a psychologist or a life coach or doing something like that? Do you think? Well, maybe.
I've had a few people mention it to me. I found myself in therapy once because what happened to me when I was going through a lot of this process, I had kind of gotten to the root of everything, but my emotions were very out of context. So I would be reacting to things, but it's like it's old emotions, if that makes sense. Like things that used to
Oh, sure.
trigger you, right? They don't really trigger you anymore, but the emotion still comes up, and it's kind of a panicking experience because you're like, oh my gosh, like what is this anger? I can't attach it to anything, but it's still here. What do I do with it? So I was going through this period. So I went to therapy, and she actually said the same thing to me. She's like, yeah, like people with your type of insight, they would make great psychologists. And I was like, thank you. That's really, really validating.
Yeah, well, be an author, be a
Why
psychologist, be a
not? Yeah.
psychologist and an author. That could work because, well, and even if you were a life coach, and there are life coaches that you can go get a weekend um, seminar, and then they give you a little thing that says you're a life coach. But there are people that have had to deal with life and learn from life
Mhm.
that can really can help other people get through it. And you've been down that road a piece, even though you're a very young person. You've been down that road a piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely have. And I'm really appreciative of your kind words. But I think that for me, my form of life coaching is writing. Is writing books, as I write music, all of those things. That's my form of life coaching, is giving back to people. And I think that it's crucial for everybody having some sort of creative outlet so that you can be in touch with that true self. A lot of our creativity comes from this, the subconscious part of us, where, we don't always think about things, especially when you're being creative, right? You don't have to think, you could just flow and just be, right? So I encourage it for everybody, but I would say that's my form of life coaching, is sharing that in my work, right? All of that goes into my work. So yeah.
Exactly. And I find out new things about people when I get to meet them again all the time. You also are a musician and a songwriter?
Yeah, I do. And I'm self-taught. I taught myself over COVID. I was quite busy and lots of extra time, so I started teaching myself piano, and that was also when I wrote Human. So yeah, it was this huge, all part of the self-exploration. It was all just pouring out of me in every way imaginable. So yes, I do compose music as well. Yes.
How did the book come to be? What made you think about even writing it from the standpoint? I mean, what was your motivation?
I think at the time, I was talking about earlier about hearing my own voice. And I think
Right.
that's what this was. It was part of the processing of getting to the point of hearing my voice. Looking back, I can say that, right? But in that moment, I can't say that I was totally aware I could hear my voice. But looking back, I'm realizing that was part of me just filtering out and going through my life and going through my experiences through these other observations that I was making at the time. All those experiences and observations in the book and Human, they're true. They were real, and it was those things that I've witnessed around me. For example, I think it's chapter 2. I walked through. I find there's looks like a potential incident of like domestic abuse, and I genuinely witnessed that scene once, and it did take me back to my own personal experiences. So all of those instances are very real, and at the time, that was me trying to heal and go through some of my own experiences and really understand, okay, who am I? And in that, once you go through all of that process, that's when you can hear your voice better, right? Because you go through all of that, you're sorting it out, and then you start to heal. And then you're like, oh, this is my true self. She's here underneath all of this other crap that was just thrown at me that isn't actually me, but she's there. I just had to find her.
At one point in time, did it kind of piss you off that those stories were there and that you tended to believe them? When you got to the bit to the
Yes.
other side, it was like, damn, that was stupid.
Yes, absolutely. And, but I think it's that just comes back to compassion, right? I mean, yeah, absolutely. I have moments where it's like Vanessa, 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 but it's kind of at the end of the day, it's compassion. It's like, you know what? That was all I knew about myself at the time. That was all my awareness was so little, like, and when I, you just look at all the factors and it's just like, you know what, Vanessa, you were doing the best that you could. And I think that is something that I consistently apply. I apply that every day. It really keeps me from getting angry in general. It's just like, you know what? I'm doing the best that I can. So is everybody else around me. Everyone, we're all just doing the best that we can. And, I think that just really helped me to just be able to be compassionate towards myself and not get so angry at myself, because it's not fair. It's not fair to be angry at yourself.
Exactly. But we all do it. And and a lot of times we do it and we don't even know that we're doing it. So what was the steps that you went through? Because there had to be an awakening of some kind or another in you that said, all right, now I know your father passed away. And oh, by the way, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Brain cancer is a horrible thing.
Yeah.
To have to deal with. And I'm glad you got out of an abusive relationship. And that you're standing stronger for that. But was that the motivation? Was that the time when you said, all right, we're going to take a time out here and we're going to reassess what the hell's going on? And then was it an evolutionary thing? Because what I'm trying to do for the audience is to say, all right, if you're in that place and you don't know how to get out of that place, because it keeps happening and you just think that that's who you are. You think that you're less than, you're not smart enough. She's beautiful. She's written a book. She's got all this stuff going for her. Now, Vanessa doesn't have any problems. She's just perfect. You know, how can you help somebody to begin to make that transition? See, now you are going to be a therapist in a life.
It's I think it's just being aware of how you feel about yourself. And I would say that as much as I was always silenced or felt silenced, I still always understood this makes me uncomfortable. This hurts me. I still always had that dialogue with myself. I would say it was definitely an evolution, though. Definitely an evolution of just kind of having more and more of these thoughts. And then, yes, like at the point when I lost my father, there was a lot of other stuff that had happened in my life too. I'm in the tech space, so I do lots of work with tech companies. I'm the COO of Athlete Tech Group, and and at that time I was working with a bunch of other companies, and there were some times where being in the startup space, there was a period of time where I didn't even have a home. I used to sleep in the back of a drugstore. It was 24 hours. And it was a 24-hour store. And anyways, that's another story. But, but it's like all of those things, right? When all those things start compiling and all that was happening at the same time. And then when I lost my father, it was pure exhaustion because I had all those things dealing at the same time. And I got to a point where I was just like, I cannot function. And I went to go visit a friend. I live in Toronto, Ontario. And then I went to go visit a friend in Calgary just to, breathe. And I was there for a couple of weeks and said, you know what, there's no rush for me to get back. And I ended up staying there for about 2 years and I was just in silence. That's really all it was. And it started out pure exhaustion. But slowly as I kept giving myself that silence just to mourn and heal from all of those different things and all those different experiences, that's then the evolution starts, right? Because you're in silence, right? It was silent. It was dark, yes, but it was silent, and you don't have all these other voices telling you who to be, how to act, this and this, you're responsible for this and that, and nothing. It was literally just me, and it was a lot, but I also knew I needed to go through that.
So you are a COO of a company. If you don't know what that means, she's the chief operating officer of a company, and that's pretty dang cool.
Thank you. It is pretty cool. I appreciate that. It's a very exciting company. We do a lot of work with prepping athletes for life after sport, and when I talk a lot about voices not being heard, I mean, there's so much that we don't hear about the athlete space. That's very similar, right? We only see the pros who get the big $1 million contracts, but there is a whole population of athletes who don't even get that opportunity, and especially young athletes, and especially young women athletes, they don't get those opportunities. And especially when you're young, they spend so much of their time and energy training. They don't have the opportunities that are available to most other students and most other people that have access to internships and part-time employment. So we have a platform that gives them content on how to prep themselves for life after sport. And we actually are currently running a program right now for BIPOC women athletes between the ages of 15 and 18. And we set them up with industry professional mentors as well. So it's really awesome. We really are doing amazing things, and I'm super proud to be a part of it.
You really are. And I'll tell you, hindsight is always 2020. And since I'm a little older now, I can look back at it's
you're seasoned, Kevin. You're seasoned.
I'm pretty spicy seasoned. I could raise somebody's blood pressure if they ate me. So, but anyway, I'm sorry. I digress. But I did want to say that what people don't get is that the journey an athlete goes through does not start when they are a pro, does not start in college. It starts when they're 8 years old. Mm-hmm. When they're 8 years old, they're the best on their team. They're on the all-star team. They're together with other all-stars. They're on their get past Little League, and then they are on that all-star team. And then everybody wants them to be on their team, and then they get to high school, and then they're the best player on their high school team. And then they're the MVP of their high school team. Everybody loves them. They get all the dates they want. They get the car that they want. Everything's cool. They go to college. They are the cream of the crop. They're in the top 100 athletes in the country and so forth. And they go through their 4 or 5 years of college, depending, and everybody bows down to them, and they're really cool and all this kind of stuff. And then they go into the pros, and a lot of times they're just short of being good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's that moment in time when they realize that they're not going to have $1 million contract,
Yeah.
that if they make it, they're going to be the 35th or the 50th person on the football team. And you're going to, and don't get me wrong, they make a nice living for the short time that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can make like in the NFL, I think the minimum is like 900,000 or something like that. But that only lasts a very short period of time. And they're still on a professional football team. They're still really cool. And then it ends. Knee gets blown out. Something happens. And they got through college without having to study because they were good and they wanted you on their team. So the professors looked the other way. The coach looked the other way, and they wanted to keep you in school so that you could be a professional, or so that you could be an athletic or an athlete on their team. So these guys are now, they're all of 24, 25, 26 years old. They've got a couple of bucks in the bank, but they've also got people that are hanging on to them who didn't make it, who want to feed off of them as well. And so suddenly that's when you guys come in, is when they are now in big time trouble because they're not, and a lot of them turn to drugs. A lot of them turn to illegal activity to try and maintain their lifestyle and that kind of stuff. And that's why the work you're doing is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, we try to even come in even earlier, right? Like, yes, absolutely. That whole journey, very accurate. And it's really upsetting, to think that it's okay for us to treat people that way, that it's like, oh, we're gonna make all these exceptions for you, but then when you're injured, we're not here for you. We're not going to support you. We're not going to give you medical care. We're not going to give you the psychological care, prep you for your life afterwards. It's just, you're just dropped. You're of no value to us anymore, and that's it. And that's really horrible. But our goal is to get in earlier, right? We do have a very special interest in working with young athletes as well, because some of them don't even get all the way up to the pro level, right? Some of them will maybe get to the college, maybe they'll get to, even just high school, right? But at that point, even then, like if you're playing competitively in high school, it's still a lot of time and energy that you're dedicated to your sports. So we want to make sure we're supplementing that. Yeah.
It's a great thing that they're doing, because kids today, they need, and athletes are a special breed, but the way that we treat them, it's like a thoroughbred horse.
Yes. Yeah.
Once the horse cannot win a race anymore, they put it out to pat. Now, and fortunately, they get the stud maybe if they're good enough, but a lot of them end up just sitting and then the kids do the same thing, and we value it so much. I think we have our values all screwed up, but that's just me.
Agreed. Yes. It's quite unfortunate that we're just so, I don't know, we just care so much more about being entertained than about what's actually beneficial or valuable to society, right? We prioritize kind of our own immediate, like, I need to feel good, I need to feel happy, and that takes more of a priority over what's better for the long term. And if we shifted that focus, we could definitely see a much different society, a much better, more fuller type of society.
I'm going to get on my soapbox again. I hope you don't mind.
Sure.
But I live in Seattle, Washington. We have a football team called the Seattle Seahawks. They have a quarterback. His name is Russell Wilson. I'm not picking on Russell because it happens on every team. He makes $36 million a year. $36 million in a year in a country. Now, you're in Canada. Thank you. Thank God for you. But $36 million in a year in a country where 16 million kids are going to go to bed hungry tonight. That is, something is screwed up with our value system down here. And it's really sad. It really is sad. And is it that way in Canada? Is that the same, or is it a little bit different?
No, it's pretty much the same, right? That's just the structure of the economy at play at that point, right? It's the same people that own the majority of everything, of teams, of news outlets, of everything, right? It's unfortunately it's the way it is, but if I think
it's not the way it could be. And
exactly.
That's why people like you, it's important that you're out there working on that. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is that this is just stupid. And we've got to get away from, I mean, how a guy who's got $1 billion, how is he going to spend that? he should be giving, we should be making sure everybody's taken care of, because what's that saying? The water rises all boats. Rising water raises all boats. Something like that. Something
Right.
profound like that I just massacred. Um, but it's like, you know, and we all need to work together, and that's why what you're doing. But you're also doing more than just that too, aren't you? You're also an angel investor, and you do a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, yep. I've made an angel investments in the past. Yes, I'm not currently looking for any deal flow, and just putting that out
Isn't that fun? It's like, yeah, I'm an angel investor, but no, I'm not now.
there.
Because it's like, have you ever noticed that when it comes up and somebody says that, yeah, Vanessa, she's an angel investor, everybody's ears perk up suddenly. It's like,
Yeah.
huh? Free money? I can get free money?
Yeah. No, not right now, not in this moment. But but I mean, I think it just comes down to, I do, and I like to support companies and technologies that really are making a difference. It's very, very important to me. Everything that I do is really focused on that. Again, even going back to my book, Human, like it is, as much as it was, and I was inspired to write it because it was a point that I heard myself, but the key takeaway is actually about how, as a society, we can connect to ourselves and then give that back to everybody else, right? That's the key takeaway of the book. When we look at Athlete Tech Group, it's the same thing. It's how are we contributing and giving people voices who don't currently have them or are not allowed to have them because it doesn't benefit who's at the top or who has money, right?
Well, it's for some people on this planet, it's I'm a big female advocate, because like down here, I don't know if you know this, but because you were born after 1976 or so, but women were not allowed to have a checking account until 1976. They didn't vote until the 1920s here. It's crazy. So we have literally thrown away some of the best minds available to us because we haven't utilized all of our resources, and women are, so it's crazy to me. So I'm glad you're living like where you're living now, because living 40 years ago would have probably been real frustrating for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've definitely made a lot of progress, but there's still, at the end of the day, it's the fundamentals, right? When you're taking away people's rights, you're basically telling them you're not human, right? You don't belong here, and that's the problem, right? That's why all these things are problematic, and we still have to deal with it. Definitely much better, but and a lot of it's just kind of embedded into the culture a little bit too, right? Like it's hidden there, and so sometimes it's very hard to find. And it's the same thing when we look at, when we deal with BIPOC communities, we talk about microaggressions and all those things, right? There are things that it's super hard to just, pull out because they're just unfortunately embedded into the culture. And so, it's why, again, like really we talk about writing, and I talk about my role in tech and really amplifying voices. That's what we're doing, is how do we bring awareness to these things, and how do we make sure we keep giving opportunities and creating spaces for these voices to be heard.
You mean that you would like to make the same as a man? Oh, come on. Don't be, you've got to be, it's like, I actually had somebody say, well, when the men have to be paid more because they're head of the household. It's like, no, but not anymore. It doesn't work like that anymore. And then, then women, they might get pregnant, and then they're going to have a kid, and then they're going to want to get off at 5 o'clock, and they're going to want to do all, and it's like,
and it's, sorry to cut you off, but it is so like frustrating to hear that, because when you think of our world, women, I mean, we are the ones who bring life into the planet, right? And then we're being penalized for it in career profession. Like it doesn't make sense. It's really, really sad that again, like we just keep devaluing women in such a way, right? That it's just like, yeah, you bring life to this world, but because we still need to make money, and because our values are not aligned properly, we're not going to really acknowledge that. So yeah, nice try.
I think a lot of it's fear. because
Yeah.
they're working from a fear mentality of well, if she has to take 8 weeks off because she's having this child and stuff, and then she can't work 60 hours a week like she was working and stuff like that, so because that I'm going to have to hire another half a person because you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's too bad, but it's changing, but it's not changing fast enough. It needs to change today. And when you get to be a senior citizen like some of us, I want the world to be completely different than it is today, in a good way.
Yeah, I hope so. And that's the goal. That's why I do what I do, right? I'm super intentional with everything that I take on. Yes, I do a lot of stuff and I'm a very busy human being, but I am super intentional with everything I take on. And I think that's another thing where we're talking about lack of values or our values are not aligned. It's because we're not intentional as humans, right? We just sort of, I don't know, like everything just happens around us and we just kind of go with it instead of actually taking a moment to go, okay, hold on a second. Do I actually want this for myself? Do I believe in this for myself? And I think if we had that inner dialogue, again, where would we be, right? If we had that capacity to have that inner dialogue, if we weren't inundated with all these new messages and feeds from social media, if we didn't have the news telling us all these things, if we didn't have magazines telling us you need to look like this, we could actually hear ourselves a little bit better and we can create the future we want for ourselves, give that back to everyone else, and that would hugely benefit our society as a whole.
I was interviewing a gal by the name of Maddie Fogg the other day, a couple of weeks back. She's a model. And she was telling me that the people that are in those magazines don't look like the people that are in those magazines.
I've heard. I have heard. I've had some suspicions as well. Sometimes I look at some of these images and I'm like, I don't know about that. If you can make that happen, good for you.
Well, and in her case, now she's slender, but in her case, it is pure genetics.
Okay.
She eats cheeseburgers, she eats whatever she wants, and it's just genetics. But she says that there are the and I can't imagine having a career where you're having to do the things that those girls are subjected to doing, and guys too. I was asking her if there was a casting couch, and it was interesting. I said, "Is there a casting couch in modeling like there is in acting?" And she said, "Yeah, there is, but it's the guys that have to deal with it." When you think about it, most fashion designers and makeup artists and stuff like that, not to stereotype, but a lot of them happen to be gay, because that's for whatever reason. And so the male models are the ones who get accosted. So it's sick, and it doesn't, don't have to be a female. It's just either way. So we've just got a lot of work to do. I'm so glad that you've written the book, because you're gonna help us get through it. The name of the book again is Human. I love it. It's just human.
Just human. One word. What more do you need to describe who we are as people?
That's it. And humans are a messy lot, and so it'd be great for us to figure it out so that we can be less messy,
or embrace the messiness. It's okay to be messy, right? Like it's normal, right? It's okay to be messy. It's okay to be frustrated and have tough times, and that's totally normal. We all do, right? Because we're emotional. We have needs, and when they're not met, when we don't hear ourselves, right, that's when things become a little messy. So it's totally normal.
You have to take. I would implore people to take your point of view as far as how you're intentional about everything that you do. You, rather than filling your day up with stuff and then being overly done and dramatic and tired and burned out, you're intentional about what you do. And I'm sure that you also take a little bit of a break from when you feel like you need it, because you need to have a little bit of balance.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Yes. But then that all comes from, again, being intentional, right? When I find for myself, when I'm super intentional in everything that I'm doing, it actually allows me to maintain my energy a little bit better so that I'm not just like hopping from one thing to the next, as I can stay present and kind of, I take that extra second to say, okay, why am I doing this? What is this going to do for me? What's the end result here that I'm aiming for? And do you know what I mean? It just, that dialogue allows me to slow down a little bit so I don't have to jump to the next thing right away. I can just very peacefully transition or evolve into the next thing. So.
Damn, I wish I could do that. That would be awesome. Because I tend to jump and just go for it. But it's better to be intentional. As a matter of fact, I have a young lady that's working with me. She's my executive producer, and I have got to be the most frustrating person around to work with.
No.
Oh yeah, because I'm I was told one time by a guy, he was my employer and I was his employee, and he said, you really need to work for yourself. Why? What does that mean? It's like, you are a shitty employee. But I imagine you're I'm good at being self-employed, but no, to follow directions, if you don't believe in it, nope, you're not a good employee. And it's like, I'm not. If I don't believe in something, I won't do it.
But that's the thing. Does that really make you a bad employee? It makes you intentional. It makes you like, you know what I mean? Again, that's another story. That's just someone else telling you what they need from you, and that you're not allowed to be who you need to be for yourself. But
but see, for him, it was a lot less convenient than if I would just shut up and do what I'm told.
Yeah, of course.
So, Vanessa, will you come back and talk to me some more?
Absolutely, I'm happy to.
Oh, awesome. By the way, Vanessa, can you pronounce your last name?
Ferlaino.
Ferlaino.
You gotta use your hand, or else it's not actually Italian. Ferlaino.
Yes, indeed. So you're gonna have some pasta for dinner? I'm just kidding. That's a stereotype. Or you're gonna have a burrito, or you're gonna have a pasta burrito.
No, I'm having some pizza tonight. And that's true. I actually am having pizza.
It is such a pleasure to talk to you. And how long has the book been out now, by the way?
It's been out since July of last year.
And how's it doing? It should be doing good.
Yeah, it's doing pretty well. I like to think so.
It's doing what you do, being an artist and an author, is the same thing about doing what I'm doing. It is hard to get it's hard to get your word out there to enough people. But you're going to be great. Do you have another book in you, by the way?
I have a few more books in me. Yes, there are about 3 which are ready to go. I just haven't really figured out. I'm in no rush, right? I'm just going to take my time and enjoy this whole experience. And then I do have another one in me that I'd like to pull out a little more. But I think, once I get the other stuff out of the way, it'll just sort of come out on its own. So I'm in no rush. I'm just waiting.
Now, when you wrote Human, was it easy? Did you feel like it was kind of inspired, and when you sat down, the words just flowed?
Yes, I did. I have a very distinct writing voice. When you actually read the book, it's a very distinct voice to it. But even that is how it sounds in my head when I'm in that sort of creative space. That is how my thoughts come out. It just comes out in that very poetic type of manner. So yeah, it did flow. And, there are some things like any writer, right? There are some things that, you have to go back, you do the editing and whatnot. And originally it was actually a lot longer, the book, but I got to a point where when I knew what I wanted the results to be, when I knew that I wanted people to look at this and go, wow, what are some things in my life that I have to be addressing, and how can I better give that back to the world? That is when I was able to cut things out. And when I did, I actually put those into the other books that I mentioned earlier that I'd like to release. But yes, it was pretty easy. It was pretty free flowing for the most part.
And what that means to me is that that's inspired. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it comes from someplace else, although I'm not going to say exactly where.
No. Mine was definitely, it was definitely inspired work. And I think that just when you go through that self-exploration process, you get to a point where you just like, it's like you can't stop, especially in the beginning when all the revelations are coming to you. You can't stop. It literally, like, I can't, like, when I say it pours out of me, that like I can't, yes, it was just pouring out of me in every way imaginable.
Well, and I thank you for writing it, because
Thank you.
the reason that it's important is that somebody's going to pick that book up and they're going to read it, and it's going to change their life.
Oh, well, thank you. I really hope so. That's so touching to hear. It really is. I really hope that people do feel inspired, and I hope that people will take that opportunity to just, hey, maybe I need to slow down and just look at me and listen to me for a while and just find my voice. Because, when you find your voice, it's this whole different way of life. You're suddenly, again, you become intentional. You start seeing you for you. You start seeing everybody else for who they are, and you live on that high vibrational energy, right? As you start living in that space of love and not fear. And it's just a very enlightened way of living.
It really is. And you know what? It's also more fun.
Way more fun. Yes. So much more fun. Absolutely.
Yeah, because when you're dealing in negativity and fear and all of that's just, it's heavy.
Yeah.
Your whole life becomes heavy, and it becomes a big drama and all that kind of yucky stuff. So get out of your own way and go get the book Human, and that will help you to, if you need an example, there's a shining one right there. Her name is Vanessa. Ferlaino. Vanessa. Her name is Vanessa.
Ferlaino.
You talk Italian really good.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure having you today.
Thank you so much. It was super nice to be here.
Actually, I shouldn't say it that way. I need to say it another way. It's very nice to interview you today, young lady.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm super appreciative to be here.
So if you will wait right there, I need to do this, and I'll be right back. By the way, before I go, get the book Human, and it's at Amazon. What's your website, by the way, again?
VanessaFerlaino.com.
and it's spelled just like it is right there in front of her. Ferlaino.
Yes.
So .com. She's got all the information that you need there. It's really pretty. The cover. Who did the cover for you?
It was just a group that I had hired. They were a small little, they did lots of cover design, but the image is actually, it's me. I hired a photographer. I stood they did a really great job with the Photoshop. I was literally standing in a swamp. If you check out my Instagram, I do have some of the behind the scenes. Literally, it was like a swamp. It was windy, and this was the time I was working out a lot. So my back muscles look great. I can assure you they do not look like that anymore, but that was then. But yes, so the image, like, it is me, but yes, I did have very experienced Photoshop people who helped remove the swamp.
Well, I tell you, it's a beautiful picture. It's a beautiful cover of a beautiful book, and you're a beautiful person. And I wish you all the best for everything that you do in life. I wish for it to be a success.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm super grateful to hear that. That's so nice.
Oh, you're so welcome, especially if you're an angel. Never mind. Forget Forget I went down that road. So, all right. Well, you wait right there. I'll be right back. Thanks for enjoying this episode all the way to the end. Please give us a like and subscribe to this channel. This has been a production of kmmedia.pro. Please visit our website, oddly enough, named kmmedia.pro, for more details about us and our mission, which is to provide great positive programming designed to inspire us all. I'm Kevin McDonald, and I'm proud of these shows, and I truly hope that you'll like them and share them with friends and family. So on behalf of our entire team, remember, be kind to each other, because each other's all we've got. We'll see you next time.